Welcome to Common Hood. We are here on another Friday, and I have my man Kevin as a guest again to give us a drop of wisdom before we take it to the weekend. And he comes up with a nice topic about leadership. So without no further ado, I'm just going to hit Kevin with the first question of leadership. Describe leadership, my brother, from a perspective of society before we come back to the norm.
So when you ask that question, describe leadership from the perspective of society.
We got president. I ain't gonna mention his name.
Yeah.
What kind of leadership should be in that position?
A leader should always be one that should be able to hear the people. Anybody, like say for instance, if you have a business, you should still be able to hear from your employees what intake they have. You should have that listening ear to hear from a standpoint of not knowing. A leader should not ever think that he knows everything, because you don't.
Right.
You never.
So being a great listener.
Being a great listener. If you're a great listener, you can always become a great leader. And that's the way I feel about it, because I've always learned that keeping my mouth shut and listening to people that's been have done things better than I have, or they know more than I do. I'm like a fly on a wall. Right. If I go in a room, I'm like a fly on the wall. If you have leaders around you, you want to always eat from that. The only way to eat from that is what? Listen.
Correct.
Listen. And then
that's just listening is a strong attribute you're saying that a great leader would have.
And you should also be able to speak. Once you listen, you should be able to speak eloquently too. Not boys, not biased to your people that you're around. I'm not gonna say no names, like you said. You can't be bold with it. You can't be bold with it. Communication, I guess, on how to articulate to your audience. Yes. I agree with that one.
But whatever audience, if we mention a certain way some people deliver, they still have their audience.
Yes, they do.
Some people like the straight up in your face, tell it like it is.
Right.
And some people like the one that'll be a little more articulate, like one president in the past that was really like that. But you mentioned in your text this week, when you mentioned something about leadership, you had mentioned some characters that I'm going to name those characters.
Okay.
You mentioned Martin Luther King.
Yes. Great leader.
I thought about Malcolm X.
Malcolm X is a great leader. In their own different perspective, they both had different ways of leading people, but they both were powerful men.
Right.
I
would like to hear your difference of observing their styles of leadership between Malcolm and Martin.
Malcolm was no hold bar type leader. He didn't take no punches. He spoke it like it was. Malcolm X was a little bit passive, which means he was laid back, but he spoke his mind. But he was more laid back than Malcolm was.
I think both listened to their audience.
They did, and I think that you can't hold them to equally, but you can hold them at the same level, if you know what I mean, because they both spoke differently. They both had their own way of leading the people, but they did great with what they were doing.
They both were influential.
Yes, they were.
But in their own perspective.
In their own perspective way, yes.
This perspective way.
Yes.
So some contributes that I like about both of them was the confidence.
Big time.
And I'm going to speed it up from the 60s to when 2025, is it? That's where you're in?
We're in 2025, brother, all day long.
Do you see the leadership out there now from a totality, whether it's local leadership abroad? Like there's something missing in the atmosphere right now as far as leadership. You agree with that?
I agree with you on that in a perspective, because I'm saying it's like this with me. I'm more of a guy that just observe things. And when you say, is it leaders out here? It might be leaders out here. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. But they're not in the public eye.
Right.
So that's something that I can't see. The teachers and stuff like that nowadays in the schools should be good leaders and good teachers or whatever, but you don't really see too much of that going on anymore. So no, I might as well say no. I don't see it.
So I think you're trying to say that the leaders that have the same public viewing, as a Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or whatever the case
may be anymore,
that visibility of characteristic traits are this not there at any level from the public view.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure they are, but the ones that get the most attention publicly we're not seeing that.
I'm going to speak on this real quick if you don't mind. Back in the day, I know you remember Jesse Jackson.
Back in the day,
Jesse Jackson. He used to speak out all the time. You used to see him, Reverend
Chicago, right?
Yeah, Reverend Al Sharpton. You see these guys all the time speaking in the public view. You don't see it anymore. They're more.
Why their messages don't resonate like, say, Malcolm X?
They've been muffled.
The King, correct?
They've been muffled.
Muzzles.
Yeah. And the thing is, they've been now in times, I believe that most of them have been like, hey, our fight's over with. Our fight's done. We can't fight anymore.
Well, and taking up for Jesse and taking up for Mr. Al Sharpton, I guess that might be a reflection of the youth. We had to step up. They did carry their torch. They did carry their torch behind powerful men that they just mentioned.
They did.
Which is the Martin Luther King, the Malcolm X, the Black Panther Party, the Kwame Nkrumahs, and there's tons of other, but those are the ones that stick out. And my mom and dad.
Yeah.
My mom and dad. So the level of confidence that you don't see out there. What about the issue of just trust when we correlate that with leadership?
Say it again.
Trust. Correlating trust with leadership.
I believe that the leaders have to assume the trust of the people, and I believe that some of the leaders nowadays, the people don't trust them,
Well, I think from a public stance, I think the trust is given to the people, to the leader, but the reciprocation of the trust is different.
Totally different.
Say it may be
totally different. Like from a business standpoint, if you say trust from a leader, like if I'm a leader in my company and my guys are looking at me as being the leader of the company or the boss of you per se, they looking at me being the boss. So they looking at me saying, okay, the boss said we got to do this. If the boss said we got to do this, the boss got to make sure these people get paid on time.
But, first and foremost, I think when you're striking that paycheck, you automatically assume that title of boss. But like I say, boss is a leader.
Is a leader.
Is a leader. And those attributes of, as you mentioned earlier, you mentioned one important when you said communication and listening and being able to articulate back to your audience in a way that's, I don't want to say the word appealing, but I guess don't ruffle feathers,
right?
So, confidence, trust. We'll be talking about honesty here with it, and bring me back to the public forum. I feel like leadership now have a lot of talking.
It's
a lot of talking, but
a lot of talking, no show.
No show.
A lot of talking, no show. I'm not a political type guy. I'm not into politics. I'm not into a lot of different things. But I could say this: when you have the debates and different things like that, they talk about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it and this and that. When they get elected, what happens? Nothing. So when I'm talking like this, it's like,
except this time.
Oh yeah, you do. Oh, I want to go there.
And the individual that's there, he got elected for certain things. He came out.
He came out.
You respect it whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not, he did. He came out swinging.
He came out
swinging, man. And what? Big time. And nobody. And the thing is, you can't fault anybody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You can't fault anybody. I just think that when we talk about leadership is something that's so, it's a wide range of different ranges of leaders. If you know what I'm saying, if I'm trying to put it in the right perspective, different ranges of leaders and different ranges of how a person is leading certain things. Like if you have politics, you have business, you have churches, for instance, pastors are leaders. You have different people in the churches that's leaders. These leaders have people look at them and they have a high, like I said, they hold them to a high standard. And then when a leader falls or they mess up, guess what?
Well, sometimes let's just take the emphasis off of leaders abroad and leaders that are visible. Let's just point it on the onuses of you're a leader, I'm a leader. Everybody have a role of leadership within them.
Right.
And some of the things that I thought about as a leader as well, you want a leader that cares.
Mhm.
You want a leader that's, compassionate about the concerns.
Yep.
Everybody want a leader that's knowledgeable. If they feel like you don't know nothing, it's hard to get somebody to follow when they feel like you don't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you don't know anything, it's good to be a good listener at that point.
Exactly.
To be that maggot on the wall to kind of soak it on. So I kind of feel like we all in some directly way to call to lead. Now, with that being said, I got a couple ideas that would fix leadership as far as abroad, internally, and what I've been applying. So, like, for one, you mentioned education earlier.
Yes.
Like, in this country, they saying, you mentioned that education ain't quite the same. We all kind of been to school. We be like, oh, they ain't teach you nothing to prepare you for life.
Right.
That is true. And what is that preparation of life? That's kind of hard for an educational system to kind of direct everybody paths on doing a certain thing. But however, I think in elementary school, when you hit about that 3rd grade, 4th grade, that 9 and 10 years old, that's when the real values become shaped. So the onus is on teaching. To me, I know parenting has a strong.
I was just ready to say that.
Yeah, we're gonna get back to it. But when you start going to school, you actually spending more time
in the school
with the leaders. So I think leadership kind of have to start there to help shape the values, because that's the time when you start beginning to identify your role models.
Yep.
In school.
That's true.
So, if you come from an inner city area and if you come into school impoverished, and then you got the one kid coming in well dripped down,
right,
he's
right.
like, where I get mine from? Come on out here.
Right.
Come out here with me.
Right.
See, that's that identification.
Exactly.
Right there.
Exactly.
That mentor, that how you identify that role model, it kind of starts. So I just think, like, what if, like, they made, God knows I love women, and there's some strong women out there, no matter where we look at it.
Exactly.
I ain't gonna get into this race of white women, black women, Asian women. All women are strong.
Right.
Everybody have them, but most elementary schools are so impacted with female teachers, right?
Right.
And sometimes we wonder, what if they had a lot of male teachers at that particular age group, when young men, you need your women teachers there too.
Yeah.
Are starting to be able to attract, to that particular role model.
I did something one time. It was an analysis that I did about the school system. And I saw that if you have a female teacher, kids are more gravitated towards female teachers because of the mother role. The father role.
Don't let the female teachers be pretty.
Yeah. But that's true. They listen.
Yes, man.
But then you also have, if you have a male teacher, I think that sometimes in a system, depending on what grade they're in, sometime in a system where you have a male teacher, it's the kids are kind of like standoffish from that. Not knowing really why, but I believe that the female teachers have a lot more influential. How can you say it? Give me a word, man, that I can put on that.
Well, you saying they're more influential because they use to the mother.
The mother, and
so they have a more of a nurturing.
That's what I'm looking for. A more of a nurturing. See, and that's the thing. That's the thing with a father figure, like a male teacher, it's totally different. Like when I went to school, I gravitated toward Miss Edison. Miss Edison, it was a Catholic school that I went through. I went to Catholic schools until I was in 5th grade. So Miss Edison, all the kids gravitated towards her because she had a soft-spoken voice. She taught all the kids well. And, I'm male teachers. The only male teacher I know was in my gym class. That type of thing. So,
but as far as establishing leadership and a mentor as a role model at that age, do you see her there? I know she talked to you nice. I know she talked to you sweet, but we're talking about an age when children are 9 or 10, where these leadership qualities that we.
I think a male child needs a male role model, a male figure, and I think a female child needs a female role model. That's the way I see it.
I think they need both.
They need both. They need both. They need both. But the thing is, with male, it depends on where they were upbringing, where they were raised at, what Atkins group they're in. I believe that for black males, from where I come from, for black males, it's hard for them to take on the role of like looking at a male teacher as a leader. For where I come from. If I look at a male teacher from where I come from, like, oh man, this dude is giving me kind of like a bad vibe here. I didn't get anything from.
As you mentioned, that I think, well, if you have a 2-parent household where the person is already used to a male, it may be a different feeling. So if you didn't have that growing up, then all of a sudden you have this male over you is there. But as you say, if the male teacher listen to you and know how to articulate you, it may change your view of how you looking for your role models going forward. So I think the male involvement is very important as the woman. But when it comes to males, no matter what it is, black, white, or whatever the case may be, this is the time where we mostly start shaping our views of determining that role model. And I'm just going to that role model because you talked about leadership.
Right.
We define some characteristics of a leader, which is, you want them to be confident, of course. He's wrong. Yeah, you want them to be strong. That's how I think of, when you think of we mentioned Malcolm X or Martin Luther.
Right.
They had to be strong for what they faced.
In their mind.
And very this very, not just strong in their mind, their care and concern showed on taking on that fight.
Right. Yep, the fight. And
taking on that fight.
When I send out my feeds, my feeds are religious based, pretty much. And it's based off my life and certain things that I went through in life most of the time when I send them out. I believe that strong role models have to be confident. They have to have a strong mindset. They have to be compassionate. They have to love people for where you have to love people for where they stand.
Right.
They can't be judgmental. A leader can't be judgmental because you're going to have everybody in different perspective places. And if you're a judgmental leader, you can never be a good leader. I really believe that.
You mentioned your religious faith.
Mm-hmm.
Would that consider Jesus? You Buddha, you Allah?
It's Jesus.
It's Jesus.
Okay, so each now my degree is in theology.
Correct.
Okay,
you mentioned that before.
So each faith have their own different leader in the faith.
Okay.
You got Allah, you got Buddha, you got Jesus.
Let's focus on the one you know.
Okay, the one I know is Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Okay.
What kind of leadership can he give us for us to follow?
The only thing Jesus Christ did when he came here?
No, I don't.
He loved the people.
Love
the people. That's what he did. He loved the people. He showed them how to walk with love. And he showed them that the things that they were doing wasn't walking in love. Because you had the Sadducees and Pharisees. I ain't going to get on a religious-based thing.
Yeah, but what we talking leadership, how is this love correlating to the leadership?
Okay, so let's put it this way. If Jesus Christ walked the world with love, right?
Right.
And all the disciples followed him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each one of them had different ways of learning. They had different ways of listening. They had different ways of doing their own thing. Put it that way. Even when Judas Iscariot, did his thing and pretty much spit in Jesus' face, that type of thing, he still loves him.
Well, the major attribute, I've read the Bible. It say I don't have a theology degree now. I don't get into that, but I did. He talked in parables,
big time.
So, that mean no matter what the human was or what the person from, whatever the background, he was able to find an effective way to communicate in a parable. So obviously we know he was a great teacher, a great teacher, which goes back to my thing. I want to bring it back to the education, like how important that is in those particular age groups, that hopefully this perpetuates through the education system or whatever the case to create these leaders. Because, we at the beginning, we identified Malcolm X, Martin, that we kind of both said look at it today from a public view,
Mm.
we can't say what's locally. You know, I feel like this is Gainesville, Florida. So when I grew up, if I had to say male figures outside of my household, I would say Mr. Lucius Mitchell and I would say Mr. Clarence Kelly. They were great leaders to kind of have that father figure, but yet be a great mentor and show their leadership qualities. Now,
I have a couple of them
Yeah.
that I've met along the way since I've been in Florida and Gainesville as well. Jody Davis,
Mr. Jody Davis.
Fred Weavy, you know, those two people are the great leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Great leaders. Rick Staub, great leader. I mean, these guys are doing things in leadership, you know, behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see, you know, and when you speak about the guys, you know, I look at their leadership qualities. They're able to talk to people. They're able to listen, mainly listen. And when they're able to listen to you, if I came to you with some type of problems, okay, and I'm talking about my problem, all of a sudden you just bust out and start talking to me. And you haven't even listened to my problem yet, you know, and you come out and bust out and start talking to me about my problem without even listening to what the problem is, basically. You just got a solution before you even really know what the problem is. So when we go back to leadership, I go back to the same thing. You have to be able to listen. And then you talk about teaching, right? How can a teacher be a great teacher if they don't know how to listen?
Right.
You got to be a great listener to be able to be a teacher, a leader, anything.
So as a leader, you feel like leaderships are born. You feel like leadership can be learned.
They can be learned.
You know, because in Jesus' case, not to go back to the religion,
You're more.
he kind of born a leader. So I will say, when it comes to teaching, when it comes to listening, when it comes to showing the love and the sacrifice, that love and sacrifice is kind of how I look at it.
But he did the same thing. He did the same thing with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, they both showed that love for the cause,
Yep.
that love for their people, and their love for injustice.
Yes.
That they showed. If you wanted compassion, they gave it. Like I say, one was different.
Yep.
You know, one believed, hey, you punch me in the eye, I got a right to punch
Yeah,
you.
go punch you back. You know?
We had one that followed another different way that say no violence should be there. So, you know, and wrapping this up, I think we all are called to lead. And we mentioned some characteristics of leadership. And I don't know if we left anything on the table, but I like how you focus. I think your focus on a great leader need to learn to listen, learn to communicate, have to be strong, have to be knowledgeable. And we have it in all these different routes. And, you know, like sometimes we don't talk about the bad guy.
Yeah.
But I tend to like the bad guy a little bit.
You know,
We had
which bad guy you talking about?
well, let's just say the neighborhood drug dealer.
Yeah. He's a leader.
There's nothing like the neighborhood drug dealer to go sit down in prison for 10 or 15 years, but yet he has an influence casted out amongst the community.
Mhm.
And I respect that. I've always looked at it. It was a recent person that's died. I don't want to mention his name because, you know, the recording or whatever the case may be, but I was amazed with all the people that came out to see him. And I said, I wonder how those conversations went.
Can I ask you?
Because it was a level of respect of the person. And in my engagement of him, it was always a positive thing. Like, hey, boom, move like this, move like that. And was always concerned. He was a person that always kind of came around when somebody passed in the community and offered of assistance. And when I looked at his leadership, I was like, wow, you know, we have this one road here and it's filled with denominations of all sorts. And I'm like, what kind of leadership quality that he has that we're missing on the outside?
Well, here's one thing that people fail to realize about. They want to put a stigma on the name drug dealer on this individual person, but they don't understand what he did for the community, go in the community for other people. You know, his heart probably been right. Better than anybody else. Okay, so you ever seen a movie, and I'm going to leave it like this. You ever seen a movie called New Jack City?
New Jack, Nemo.
Nino. Now see. Listen, man.
I love
$1 million a week business. This man. And what I mean by that is, it was a scene in that movie that some people fail to realize. Now, take away the drugs, take away the people that he was selling to, take away all that stuff.
Right.
This one scene that he had in the movie, it was, I think it was around Christmas time. I think it was in a movie. He was giving out turkeys. A whole bunch of turkeys. Now, he ain't in the church. Okay. This man ain't in the church. The church is supposed to be giving out these turkeys now. This man was from the streets. Now, his mindset, some people, his mindset was wrong, but the giving part is what I seen in that movie. I saw that particular part.
$1 million, I can give out turkeys too.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, you know, but what I'm saying is, we'll get back to the situation at hand, the leadership, how many people did he have following him in that role? A whole bunch of people. A whole bunch of people. Now, if you take here's something that I'm
You just led him down the wrong path.
That's right. Let him down the wrong path.
That's all.
If you take an entrepreneur with an LLC, he made his corporation, he built him a business from his mind. You take a dope dealer, he ain't got no LLC, but you might as well say he got an invisible LLC. He got a mindset inside of his mind of how he's going to run his community, how he's going to run his business. This person over here is going to run his business legally. He's going to run his illegally. What's the difference? The difference is this people they're going by the laws. This guy over here, he's breaking the laws, but still in the same sense, it's still leadership roles. They're still making. Now, do I condone that? No. But what I'm saying is this individual person, if his mindset gets right, he can make the same type of money he can over here and lead the people the right way over here.
Actually, I think the drug dealer role is much more difficult.
Very.
Than the legality role, so to say, because it's more high risk.
Very high risk.
So I'm going to respect their critical thinking.
Yep.
I'm going to request their distribution. I'm going to request their marketing. I'm going to request their ways of leadership.
Yep.
Now, some can do it without having an iron fist. Some do. Some don't have to. But, you know, I respect both in their respective rights. But going back to the characteristics that we talked about,
right.
If you take the drug dealer and you take the CEO, does the leader of the pack of the drug and the CEO have the same confidence?
Yes.
Were they able to get the people to trust them?
Yes.
To climb the laddership, did they have the ability to unite?
Yes.
Did they have the ability to communicate?
Yes.
Were they both knowledgeable of the products?
Yes.
Or the service that they offer? So all those leadership qualities. Now taking it back to the element of when you brought Jesus in, I'm gonna leave it like this right here. And you had mentioned, I'm paraphrasing, you say that the words of your mouth and the meditation of our hearts, you know, you say it should always be as acceptable in His sight. So when I read that small scripture you gave, I'm assuming from the Bible,
right?
That when it said acceptable to His sight.
That's deep.
I'm going to let you take it from there. We're going to close out.
And see, when it says acceptable to sight, people always go back to a religious standpoint on it.
Let's leave the religion out of it.
Yeah, thank you.
The leadership that's acceptable to sight.
Yeah. So acceptable to the sight is if you're speaking and the things that you're thinking about is, I gotta say, not hurting anybody, not doing ill-gotten will against anybody, and loving on the same person the proper way, that's acceptable to His sight. That's a way to break it down. And not going to the religious standpoint of it or anything like that. That particular passage is so deep to where people really understand. You can have a religious man or you can have a non-religious man. Each one of them are created by the same creator that I was created by. Each one of them bleed red. Each one of them have their own way of thinking, right? But if they always think about positive things and talk positive things and loving the people the right way, that's acceptable to His sight.
You know? Well, and wrapping up, when I thought about acceptable to His sight, I just thought about my role, your role, that person's role, everybody
got a different role.
That we all have that ability to lead in our own ways.
That's it.
But we want to lead a way that's acceptable. And for it to be acceptable, it has to be in those ways that you mentioned of showing the love and the respect. So once again, man, thank you for joining us on the show here.
Appreciate you, bro.
I know you're going to come back. We're going to reel you on in. we're gonna read you in. So we blessing you with this for the weekend. Enjoy your weekend on this powerful Friday. We out. Thank you for joining us with Common Hood.
Amen.
All right.
All right.